There's no way I'm giving Talion up, for any reason. It's outside of the question, Mother. I will not hand my son over on a silver platter, just to save my own life. I don't care how dangerous it is. I am his mother. He belongs with me. Trying to barter away my son is not something that I invited you here for. So, if you can't be helpful, if you cannot find a way to teach Talius magic, then Talion is of none of your concern, and you can go. Unless, of course, you feel like actually being helpful in some other way. Perhaps helping me hide myself and Talion from whoever it is who's going to come. Keep us safe. But if you're incapable or unwilling to do either of those things, then you can just go. I don't care if it's dangerous. I don't care if they try to kill me. My love for my son is not negotiable. I will not do without him. I will not be degraded to just some nanny watching after him while someone else fills the position of his mother. Melody, you have to be reasonable about this. I mean, think about it. Whoever the woman is, she is actually his mother. Not you. You may have raised him, but this woman birthed him. Remember your own child, the one you lost. Imagine if you knew that child was alive, just out there somewhere. Tell me, is there anything that you wouldn't do? Any amount of power that you possess that you would not levy? Any amount of cruelty that you would not inflict, if it would bring them back to you? Do not believe that simply because they fall under the category of demon, that they are incapable of love, just as we are, and that love cannot create madness, obsession, that when robbed of it, they can enact cruelty of unimaginable proportions, just as you do not want to give Talion up. His true mother is unlikely to have favored that as an option. She no doubt wants her child back and would pay any price to do so. And that's not even talking about the father. I spoke of them as sending somebody to pick him up. But if they find out that he's alive, if they know where he is, it might even be possible that they come themselves, which would be a nightmare. Seriously, you can't even imagine it. An entity from their realm, of their stature and power, has not walked on the ground of this plane in thousands of years. The last time one crossed over, they burnt half the world to ashes. It took the combined force of almost every military on the planet just to force them back. They didn't even kill them. They simply provided so much resistance that it was no longer profitable to be here. So they returned to their world. If another one of these beings surfaces, there's no telling how much damage they could do. You're talking about catastrophic levels of destruction. Cities burnt to ash. Hundreds of thousands of lives lost. I may not particularly be a kind woman, but that doesn't mean I'm a fan of burning entire cities to the ground. Places filled with men, women, and children. Who knows how cruel or cold these individuals could be? They might be precise. Come here and kill you, and only you, and take their son with them, making not a peep to anyone else. Or they could be a typhoon of destruction that will carve a scar into humanity's history for thousands of years to come. Wars that will be written about in storybooks. The truth is that we don't know Melody. We don't know who his parents are, what they're like, their tactics, their goals, their ambitions. their personal character. It's all a blank. For all we know, his parents could be kind. You think you are protecting him, keeping him safe with you. But tell me, Melody, if I were to go digging around, look into the information, and find that his parents were honorable, that despite being demons, that they carried themselves with kindness and esteem, that they were truly noble of heart, that their child would be loved and cared for, just as much as if you were doing it yourself, that their parents lie broken-hearted wondering where their child is. Could you truly, in your heart, live your life raising their son in their stead, without a care in the world, knowing that he could have his true family, one that loved and adored him just as you do, in a world where he would not be discriminated against, where being a demon is not something that is frowned upon, where he could walk the streets without being hunted, without people throwing stones at him, lighting their torches, gathering their pitchforks. We have always lived lives of hiding in the shadows, Melody. You and I, and all those like us. That is what it is like here on Earth. All those that are different must always hide. We must live in the shadows and make our home there. Hide who or what we are, if we can, just for a chance at survival. But in his own world, alongside beings like him, he would not face that discrimination. He would not have to hide, Vera said seriously, continuing her speech. All the while, Melody's face staying determined, but you could still see it. The thoughts running through her mind as she began to break eye contact and stare down at the floor, questioning whether she was truly doing what was best for Talion, or whether she was just being selfish, whether what would be best for him was to go home, to be with his real parents. She stood there stiff, her fists beginning to clench as she held that rigid posture. Think about it, Melody. If Talion returns home, not only would he not be discriminated against, the life he would lead would most likely be far better than anything that you can hope to provide here. His parents are most likely nobility of some level, raised in noble families with wealth and power, influence, capable of granting him the highest levels of education, training, and instruction, to never know what it is like to feel hungry regardless of the state of the world, to wear the finest clothes, to be part of the greatest level of society that one can attain. Wealth, power, and influence given to him as right by his very birth. That is what you are denying him by keeping him here. Don't get me wrong, if Talion was simply some mid to low level type of entity, a demon, this wouldn't even be a question. If he was something ordinary or common, a ghoul, a wraith, an ogre, even a werewolf, then it might be next to impossible to truly know where or who his parents were at all. And the life that he would lead, should you give them back, might not be any better than the life that he would live here. I wouldn't at all question keeping him then. But this is not that, Melody. The list of parents who could possibly fit these categories, who stand at this higher level with these specific racial endowments, it is most likely a very short list. If you couldn't find Talion's parents, that's one thing. But to know beyond all question that finding them would be a simple matter, and to refuse it. Tell me, Melody. Talion is but a child now, but how long do you think it will be before he resents you for it? Before he wants to know who he is, whether he was loved, what his life could have been, and for his very own mother, who claims that she loves him, to refuse it. As Vera spoke, Talion stepped back away from the table. At this point, he didn't know what to think. There were so many things rushing through his head. At the moment, he couldn't tell up from down, lost in a whirlwind of thoughts and fears. He loved his mother. He didn't want to leave, but there was also a nagging sensation that had always bothered him, but that he couldn't really put words to. He had subconsciously noted the differences between him and his mother. The fact that, though they were happy, they were always alone here on the mountain. So, in his heart of hearts, he had always asked the question, deep down, where it didn't have to bother him on the surface. The question of what he truly was, where he came from, whether he was loved, whether anyone else would ever love him. Questions that existed within his heart, but until Vera began speaking, had no words to place them.